Hello everyone! In today's video I'm going to show you what may be the greatest chess puzzle ever composed. In this position it is white to move and win. Now this is definitely one of the coolest puzzles that I've ever seen, and I saw it quite a few years back. I think it was on chessbase.com, and it stuck in my mind because it had a cool story that went along with it. So it was composed in 1970 by a Dutch endgame composer named Brooklyn, I think. But it didn't become widely known until 1987 when it was presented to some of the world's top chess players after they had finished their games in a super tournament. Some of these players included Kasparov, who could not solve the puzzle, Karpov, who also did not solve the puzzle, but there was one former world champion who did solve the puzzle, and I will reveal to you who that is in a few moments. But first, let's take a look at Stockfish attempting to solve the puzzle. Here I've shared a screenshot of Stockfish analyzing for almost 13 minutes, still believing that white is losing, and showing knight takes e3 as the strongest move for white, which I will tell you is not the strongest move. So that's a hint for you if you want to try to solve this puzzle. Even after I input the correct move into Stockfish, it still took it over 3 minutes before it changed its mind and realized that white was indeed winning. So it is a very deep sequence of moves, but it can be solved by a human. And the human who successfully solved it was none other than former world champion Mikhail Tal, known to be one of the most brilliant attacking and sacrificial players of all time. I remember there was some top player who remarked that Tal would be the greatest player of all time if he had a little more discipline. I don't remember who said that, but apparently Tal didn't study enough. But as the story goes, he initially could not solve this problem and he had to take a long walk in the park, and after an hour he came back to the tournament hall and presented the solution. So it can be solved, and if you want to take a crack at it, go ahead and stop the video because I'm about to reveal to you the solution. Now, as you might have guessed, the solution does involve white promoting the pawn to a queen, but you can't do it right away. I imagine that most of you probably realized pretty quickly that promoting the pawn to a queen runs into knight f7 check, forking the king and queen, and white immediately loses the queen. So that is not correct. Correct move is knight to f6 check. Okay, let's look at black's options. If you go to h8, obviously that's not good because white promotes the pawn with check and will win. If you go to g6, there's this nice move bishop h5 check. And after the king moves, now we can get the queen because the bishop is covering that f7 square. So if you try the knight fork, the bishop will just take out the knight and white gets to keep the queen. So you have to go to g7. Knight h5 check is the next move. If you go to f7, no good. You've blocked your knight from the fork, so white can get his queen and keep it. If you go to h7, there's bishop c2 check. This will force the king to the back rank, meaning that white can promote the pawn with check. So that loses. King g6 is the correct move, and now white continues bishop c2 check. Now the king must take the knight. Your only other option is to go to f7, which again blocks your knight from the fork, and white will get the queen. So king takes h5. Now white promotes. What? Allowing the fork? Yes. The queen is not how we win. All the queen does is draws this knight over here. Knight takes d8 check. We can get our king to f5. And now you see the point. The black king is very short on squares. If we could deliver a check with this bishop, it would be checkmate. And that is the goal for the remainder of the problem. The threat here, if it was white to move, would just be simply bishop d1 check. You can block with the pawn, but then bishop takes e2 is mate. So black's only way to stop this is to play e2. Now there's no bishop d1 or you just get captured. So now we look for other ways to check the king. We go bishop e4. We want to come into f3. Looks like there's no way to stop this, but there is. You have to promote to a knight. Promoting to a queen allows checkmate, but the knight, it covers f3. So now white has to look for a different way to check this king with the bishop. Bishop d5 is next. The threat now is bishop c4 followed by bishop e2. You cannot stop bishop e4, but you can stop bishop e2. The way to do that is to play c2, and after bishop c4, again black promotes to a knight, covering the e2 square. Okay, let's look for another square to check the black king. Bishop b5. This threatens to go to e8, checkmating that way. So now you have to go knight c7. Hits the bishop, guards the e8 square. But now we go bishop a4, looking to go to d1, and there is no defense. If you could attack the g3 pawn, you'd be fine. because you could take that pawn out, but there is no way to do that. You can only go knight e2, but bishop d1 pins the knight, so you're not taking that pawn. And on the next move, maybe you do something like this. The mate is just unstoppable. There may be more variations to look at, I don't know. You want to look for ways that black can try to check this king or take out this pawn before the bishop gets to the deadly diagonal, delivering mate to the black king. So you can explore these lines if you want, but all of them fail. I think, for example, there was a line back here where you could put a knight to c6, hoping to check the king like this, but then that allows this bishop f7 mate. I don't know if there's any more moves like that, but all of them fail pretty quickly. So if you spot some alternative variation like that, it should be pretty easy to refute within a move or two. Now I should note, if black wanted to prolong the game, right here, king g4 would actually be the way to do that, because here in the cloud, it has been discovered that it's a checkmate. It says 28 moves for white. So you allow white to keep the queen, but it takes longer to checkmate the black king this way. And the variation looks something like this, with the queen driving the king back, and then the white king gets involved, and black doesn't have enough firepower to do anything, and eventually pieces are lost, and there's a checkmate. So this was the mate. It looks something like this, so you can see where this is going. So that's an amazing problem. I've never tried to compose a chess problem in my life. It would be quite an achievement to create one like this, where you have such an imbalance of material and no way for white to immediately get a material advantage. And never really does get a material advantage, only for a moment with that queen, but is able to deliver a checkmate with only the king, a pawn, and a bishop. So I hope you enjoyed that. Consider subscribing to the channel. In the near future, I'll be analyzing games, might share some more problems. Just all kinds of chess-related videos are coming your way. Thanks for watching.